Unsolicited network for the strong, not the weak.
Escaping this. No 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 escaping this.
HRap.
Shaka Zulu of the 19th century is arguably the most popular king in African history. He's been referenced quite often in popular culture throughout the years. He gets a lot of credit for essentially creating Zulu military culture. Even though this Zulu king has had many accomplishments, there was another great African ruler, seldom spoken of, that existed a century before in southern Africa, and this ruler can be said to be an even greater conqueror than Shaka himself. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you'd like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. The Southern African ruler we'll be speaking about today is Shangamire Dumbo. Shangamire Dumbo was a ruler of the Rasvi Empire that was founded by him in 1660. It was located in the modern country of Zimbabwe amongst one of the Shona peoples. Now, as we in the diaspora look at African history, I think it's important for us to do our own analysis and determine our noteworthy figures, because if we don't, we may miss something that is of great importance to us. Many celebrated African figures were presented to us by people outside of our community, and it's for this reason why we miss out on legendary figures like Shangamire Dumbo, as we don't really hear much about him at all in popular culture. In order to understand this great ruler, we have to understand where he came from and the conditions in which he formed his empire. Before the great Shangamire created his dynasty of Rasvi rulers, the Mutapa Empire was the primary state in the region. The Portuguese constantly tried to get a stronghold in the region, and their efforts were continually frustrated by the well-organized economic system of the Mutapa throne. That is, until things went left for Mutapa with succession disputes, a common problem in world history. Succession disputes were the ruin of Mutapa as various princes vied for power. The only way a contender got the advantage was by calling on the Portuguese for military assistance to gain the throne. Once that happened, Portugal was essentially able to influence the politics of the great Shona state. Portugal began to dominate the area south of the Zambezi River, Mutapa was in rapid decline. Civil unrest became common as the state took a downward spiral, but this did not deter local Shona men from establishing their own militias to acquire power and fight back against European and Mutapa domination. The most popular of these local Shona warlords was a former cattle herder named Dumbo. After displays of power and positioning himself as the principal warlord in the region, he gained the respect of his men and was granted the title Shangamire, meaning Lord. Shangamire then developed a powerful army known as the Rasvi. They became a dominant force in the northeast Zimbabwe plateau. This great Shangamire consolidated his power by defeating other kingdoms vying for power, destroying capitals, and absorbing other local Shona peoples. His first encounter with the Portuguese was at the Battle of Mwangwe in 1684. What's interesting about Shangamire Dumbo was that he didn't just use brute force to defeat the Portuguese, but psychological warfare became his greatest weapon. At this particular battle, Portuguese gunfire continued to save them from total annihilation, as they were almost routed several times according to the sources. However, early the next day, the Portuguese awoke to find that they were surrounded by fire made by Rasvi women, instructed to do so on Shangamire Dumbo's orders. This made the Portuguese believe that they were surrounded, and morale plummeted, and they took flight. Shangamire didn't only deal with the Portuguese, but other African enemies like the Mutapa Empire. He constantly defeated all his African foes, and at one point, the Mutapa throne seeking independence from Portugal asked for the Shangamire's aid. The great Rasvi ruler accepted the call, and in November 1693, Shangamire rendered the Portuguese helpless under his rule. The Rasvi army attacked Portuguese settlements, destroyed churches, defiled their holy vessels and sacred images, dug up Portuguese graves, and committed other acts that totally demoralized them. This was perhaps one of the most humiliating defeats of a European power in all of southern Africa. The Battle of Islandwanla between the Zulu and the British, only somewhat echoing it in importance. It seemed as though everywhere the Shangamire went, the Portuguese were no match. Ironically, the Portuguese were able to seize the Mutapa throne. That was only because Shangamire Dumbo didn't intervene due to his campaign in Manyika, where he replaced the ruler there and destroyed Portuguese presence. What Shangamire Dumbo accomplished was unprecedented in southern African history, especially if you compare it to Portuguese power exhibited along the Swahili coast. The Shangamires and their dynasty prompted many Portuguese settlers to leave the plateau altogether and move into the Zambezi Valley. It's interesting that the name Shangamire Dumbo does not carry the same fame like that of Shaka Zulu. This is why it's important that we study African history for ourselves and determine who our greats will be. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night. Depending upon where you are, that's appropriate. This is HRap, the host of the End of the Bench podcast. Thank you for tuning in. It has been an interesting week as usual. I have a lot to talk about, and I want to welcome you to Built for This Network. If you can go to Spreaker, if you're listening via Spreaker.com, and we are Built for This Network, I want you to go there, hit like, hit subscribe, come in, interact with me if possible. If you listen to me via YouTube, this is the End of the Bench podcast. Same thing, just a different port for the information. Thank you. It's going to be fun. If you are listening via YouTube, I need you to do what I always ask you to do. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, tell a friend to tune in. And then what I would like you to do is hit the notification button. The notification button will give this the alert button. It's a bell. It will give you the ability to get a notification anytime I log on. That way you won't miss any of the action here built for this network. Thank you for tuning in. It's going to be a blast, as usual. Now, if you like, you can also do me an additional favor. You can go to theendofthebench.com. I am currently streaming live. Theendofthebench.com, where I am currently streaming live. I see that my internet is acting funny, but who cares? It's what it is. That's what we do. Obviously, I'm going to be saying something positive, and it seems as if anytime I'm saying something positive, internet start acting funny. Figure it out. Now, as I do every week, I want to acknowledge my ancestors as well as my family. Everybody connected to the Pollock, Whitmore, Patterson, Turner, Battle, Cotton, Harper, Bailey, Crisp, Lansdowne, Shaw, Thompson, Liggins, Duncan, and Williams clan. We are all in the building at all time. My ancestors, my family. I need their support. They give me the support every week. Thank you as well. Now, and you can find this program on Built for This Network on a myriad of podcast platforms that you can download and subscribe to as well. That will greatly be appreciated. Spreaker.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, Amazon, and Podcast Addict. Thank you. That's a mouthful. And allow me to proceed. Now, this has been an interesting week as usual, man. I'm going to start off in the world. You know what, I'm going to start off. It don't make a difference where I'm going to start off. But what I've noticed is we've gotten into a situation to whereas all you have to do is be an individual. We are a groupthink culture at this point. And I truly mean that, and I'm sad to hear it. But we are a groupthink culture. And what I mean by a groupthink culture is to be your own person is almost asinine to most people today. Anytime you do things on your own, no matter well, you're gonna be criticized no matter what. There's people criticizing this show currently. There's people criticizing my shows in the past, and there'll be people criticizing my shows Thursday. So that's the way the world works. This is what we do. This is how we do it in America. We disrespect each other. We call each other out. We call each other names, and then we move forward. And then we assume that that's the way to go about it. But me personally, I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think at some point, somehow, some way, we need to start respecting everyone and everything around us. You know, because it's one thing to consider yourself a critic. It's one thing to have an opinion on other people's lives. We all do. We all make judgments. We all look at each other and go, well, you know, I don't know, whatever. I get it. I truly get it. You know, I understand why people do those things. I understand that in some cases people deem it necessary. Like, hey, you know, this is the way it is. This is the way it should be. And then you want your voice heard. I understand that. But in some cases, and this is where I'm going to start, with this young man that we know, he is the Michael Jordan of his era. He is the Dr. J of his era. He's the Wilt Chamberlain of his era. He is the guy that everybody attempts to, you know, outdo. And that's cool. It's cool to try to outdo someone. And that's, you know, competition is healthy. Anytime you have competition in any shape, form, or fashion, it's healthy. But we denigrate this young man no matter what he does. Me personally, I think it's a setup by the people who are in charge of the world, the dominant society. And the reason I say that is this. The reason I say that is because this dude, I'm old enough to remember the 80s. And in the 80s, I remember people like the great Michael Jordan and the great Magic Johnson being criticized for not standing up. Oh man, they don't stand up, and they don't stand up for their people. Look at all the money and power they have, and they do nothing. On the other hand, we got this young man by the name of LeBron James, and guess what? He's criticized no matter what he does. No matter what this young man named LeBron James does, he's criticized for it. And look, to be critical about anything and anybody is okay. Because again, I'm being judged as I speak currently, so there's nothing wrong with it. But have you ever thought about this? The reason LeBron James, we got this, allow me to take one step back. We got this young man by the name of Kwame Brown. He has his own YouTube channel. He's a former NBA player. He spent like 12, maybe 15 years in the National Basketball Association. And what he wasn't the best. Nobody's going to confuse Kwame Brown with Michael Jordan. Nobody's ever going to say, hey, you know what? Man, I want my career to be like Kwame Brown. Nobody in the history of the world will say that. He was an average player on his best night. He was just another guy. As me and my homeboys say, he was a Jag, just another guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, because guess what? A Jag and the rest of the world, when you see a Jag, you go play on the court with a Jag that played in the NBA, and you got another situation, But he's mentioning this thing he calls the go along to get along game. Whatever's going on, they say that's what it is, and they do it so they can get along and everybody will like them. And he mentioned that in his personal opinion, the National Basketball Association and the people who are in charge of it, they set it up so he would look bad. They put him in the worst possible situation. He is consistently considered, he is almost the damn synonym for bad basketball player and horrible basketball player. And he's this and he's that. But yet it's still, as Stephen A., not as Jalen Rose once stated, and as Stephen A. Smith refuses to admit, he didn't, we've seen, if you're a sports fan, you've seen guys who are horrible and they're gone as soon as their rookie contract is up. As soon as their rookie deal is up, people who are considered horrible, they're out of the National Basketball Association. They're out of there. They're in Europe. They may still be making money in Central America, they're wherever, but they're not in the great public's eye. Again, Kwame Brown didn't have that problem. He moved around the NBA on a regular basis, and he kept getting chance after chance, and he played defense. But the whole world, when you walk into a barbershop just about anywhere in America, you bring up Kwame Brown, somebody's going to say scrub, buster, bum. He wasn't nothing, man. Why are you even bringing him up, right? But he also says they did this to him because they wanted to discourage people from leaving high school and going directly to get money and take care of their families for the rest of their lives. Now, this is what I do believe is going on with one LeBron James. LeBron James is an athlete that I've never seen anybody, no matter what he does, people are on top of his head. LeBron James could save kids from a goddamn fire, and people will go, well, why didn't he stop the fire from happening in the first place? And I believe he gets that much scrutiny because if you want to leave and go directly to the National Basketball Association and be a superstar, and you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it, you're going to get this type of pressure. Are you prepared to get this kind of pressure? Most people aren't. God bless him, man. The last bad thing we heard about LeBron is was somehow, some way he ended up with a Hummer his senior year in high school before he was ever earning any money, and he got a speeding ticket. That was the last bad. Because if you're going to call the decision when he decided after his contract was up to go where the hell he wanted to go, if that's bad, then why do you keep telling me about America and I got my rights and these things, right? The reason I'm bringing this up is America, and I got my rights, and I can do what I want to do as long as it's not illegal and it's not hurting anybody. You can do what you want to do. Because LeBron James said, you know what? I don't want to be like Oscar Robertson. I don't want to be like Charles Barkley. I don't want to be like Karl Malone. I don't want to be like Patrick Ewing and Reggie Miller and be loyal to these teams and these places. And at the end of it, I don't get anything. and I'll get criticized. And the first thing you say when you see a Patrick Ewing, a Charles Barkley, a Karl Malone, or any of those big-time ball players, he was great, but he didn't win. And you make it seem like it's a problem that LeBron James noticed that the Cleveland Cavaliers were only getting him players that were far past their prime, and they had big names. So you could say, well, he played with Shaq. Yeah, he played with Shaq maybe a year before he retired. He played with Antoine Jameson. Well, he played with Antoine Jameson at the end of the rope with him. We can name all these guys he played with. He played with them at the end of that rope. And to play with someone at the end of the rope really means nothing. You didn't play with this guy when he could help you. And everything about this young man is being scrutinized, and he's under a microscope. And you know what? If you want to say that's what comes along with making $1 billion, you're right. But this week, LeBron James went on TV and was asked a question about the vaccination. And LeBron James said, yes, me and my family are vaccinated, but I'm not going to step out here and tell anybody else to get vaccinated because those are personal choices. And I respected him for that. And the ladies on The View attacked him for it. And they said, hey, well, you should have told people. No, he shouldn't have. Because whether you are pro or anti anything, you don't have to tell the general public to do anything. Why don't you, when LeBron James stands up for social justice, why don't they comment on The View about that? Because they'll tell you that's not our business, that's not our lane, that's not where we live. And look, this is a world health thing, and I understand. A lot of people are up in arms. People are dying. Me personally, 15 of my friends have transitioned since February 2020. The recent was about a month ago. Her name, well, it didn't make a difference what her name is, but she's been my friend my entire life. I've known this lady at least, I'm 51, I've known her at least 48 of those years. And now she's not here. So I understand people are afraid, but to try to force people. Now, I'm with the mask. I'm with the sanitizing of the hands and things of that nature. I think you should do that to protect yourself and the people around you. But when people start saying what this man should and should not talk about, okay, well, why didn't you stand up and protect him when the lady on Fox News told him shut up and dribble? Why didn't y'all have whoopee? Why didn't you have that conversation on that end? Why wasn't it a big story? Because anytime this man steps up and speaks up, it's a problem. It's a problem no matter what he does. He did what was best for him. We have a situation in the sports communities. He's chasing rings. Well, damn it, that's the goal. He's a punk. You don't know him. He's flopping. You mean like the dudes who were doing it before he got in the league? See, we can't. It's anytime you step up as a brother, and that's going to be kind of the theme of the show today. When brothers step up, or if we ruffle the feathers, it's a problem. But when we just lay back and watch, and if we don't ruffle the feathers, that's a problem. And it's starting to bother me. It really is, because the representation of black men in America is already piss poor. We are people who beat our women. We don't want to work. We don't do anything. We don't stand up enough. I mean, I have been listening chapter, book, and verse of the annihilation of the black man in America, and it's starting to get on my damn nerves because I'm one of them. Nobody is perfect. Nobody that ever walked the face of this earth is perfect that I know of. So, look, do brothers make mistakes? Yeah, but it's just like anything else. The brothers who are participating in nefarious activities, they only represent a small portion of our community. The brothers who are worthless, they only represent a small portion of our community. And what happens is those brothers those are the squeaky wheels, and they get the oil, and then guess what happens? We, as the dudes who are doing the right thing, and yes, I'm one of those dudes who's doing the right thing, we get blamed for all of their nonsense, and I'm sick of it. I literally heard a television, one of my favorite shows. I'm not going to call her out because I don't want anybody not to listen, because that is like 0.5% of the time. I've been listening to this show for about 7 years, and this is the 99.99999% time that I love it, versus this 0.00001% that I was like, what the? And it was during this R. Kelly verdict thing, and she had psychologists on, and she had people who were victimized by pedophiles and things of that nature, and she had this woman Dream Hampton on, and Dream Hampton is the person who put out the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. I've never watched it, and I never will. But Dream and her made this statement, this broad sweeping statement, that if black men stood up, the community would be better. See, the problem with these pedophiles is, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm going to give you the general idea of what they were saying. If black men stood up and had these kinds of conversations, there would be far less sexual assault victims. And it was insulting, because who the hell said we're not having these conversations? Oh, they're not having this conversation at the barbershop. So what you ladies are doing is, when you get off air, and when she not directing videos or whatever the hell else Dream Hampton does, y'all going all through all 50 states, through all the communities, and just sitting there every Saturday. Y'all got every barbershop bugged like Batman in the Batcave, and watching everything, and realize we're not having these conversations. Just for your edification, brothers are having conversations about R. Kelly, and there are brothers in there that's defending R. Kelly, and there's brothers in there that's jumping down those dudes' throats, and there's brothers in there. But I know this for a fact: everybody, there's a different opinion in every situation, no matter what. But I know this one thing for a fact: to a man, you can ask any man, especially a brother, because I'm speaking for the brothers, because I'm one of them. You walk up to any brother with a sister, a mother, a daughter, niece, cousin, a homeboy with a daughter, one of those, and say, hey man, what would you do if this happened to this young lady? And to a man, I've only heard that dude wouldn't have made it to court. He wouldn't have had his day in court. So for people to make this broad sweeping statement that we're part of the problem, well, everybody's part of the problem, but you're not going to lay this on the shoulders of brothers, because brothers are having these conversations. And just for your edification, Miss Hampton, I remember the weekend that this whole thing broke. I'm not going to tell you why, and it doesn't make a difference. But I remember when this whole thing broke, and one of the things that stood out to me was I was sitting, ironically, in a barber shop 20 years ago when this thing became a national story, and it was a black woman sitting next to me talking to other black women saying, these little fast girls getting what they want. So should I do exactly what Dream Hampton did, and then inculcate the entire black woman diaspora in due to some opinions that I don't agree with? No, I'm not. But when it comes to us, a lot of people will look at one brother and we all bums and deadbeat dads, and there have been studies that show black men engage with their children 60% more than any culture in America. 60% more. Not 10, not 20, not 15, not 5, 60. 60% more. That's not saying anything disparaging about anybody or any culture. But what I want you to understand is this. That in itself shows you, hey, we are not the monsters that you portray us as. We are not these deadbeat, trifling bastards that y'all make us out to be. Just like when the example I've given time and time again about neighborhoods. You will drive through a neighborhood. You've been programmed to drive through a neighborhood, see 12, 15 people standing on any corner in this community. Look at this, is a bad community. Look at these guys, they're out there doing nothing. First of all, you don't know if that's a basketball team waiting on the bus to go to a game. More than likely it's not. But if it's an impoverished community, it could be. You never know what the hell's going on. Because guess what? At any point, my man Ernest Mackey, my man Tang, my man Lafayette, and the Demons basketball with the coach, with their head coach who's a friend of the show, Carter, Vince Carter. Hey, Coach Vince Carter. They could have been waiting on Vince Carter to show up to go to a game. But you'll drive through that community, see those guys standing around, they're not doing anything, and then you say this is a bad neighborhood. You go over on Orchard, you see my man Doc, you see my man Hawks, his brother, you know, my man Reggie from my community, and he's in another community. They stand around, you say the same thing, and they're all basketball players. They're not doing anything nefarious. But you'll label them, and they do the same thing to the rest of us, squares or outside the pocket, outside of the box people. Look at these black dudes, and they're representative of this. See, later on, I'm going to get into the social media and traditional media and everything else destroying our image. Look, it's tough being black in America. It's tough being black on the earth at this point because we're being attacked at all angles. But to make this dude R. Kelly the poster boy for sexual assault, when you had Kevin Spacey raping men, when you got Harvey Weinstein for decades doing this, and I'm not saying anybody from my community should be exalted, don't look at it, but if we're going to talk about sexual assault, we need to encompass every single solitary person on the face of the earth, inside of our community, outside of our community, in every community in the history of the world. That's how you eradicate something. We don't need to do this and do that and this, that, and the third. We're not going to single out a few people and then say, hey, see, black men, y'all the problem. Nah, because, again, how are you different than the bigots? Than the media? It's amazing how people in my community will say the media misrepresents us all the time and then turn around and quote said media. How do you do that? How does that make sense to you? That's what I really want to know. How does that make sense to you? The media does a poor job representing the black community. Y'all, but when it comes to sisters, y'all don't have no problem defending the sisters. Oh, well, I don't want to be seen as the angry black woman. I don't want to be seen as this. Look, they're bad apples on both sides. Please stop participating in this fake-ass civil war that people are trying to create. Because guess what? Every time you highlight something that somebody else does, and then you highlight something bad that the other person does, guess what? The people that not doing bad in both groups, they're going, what about me? I don't do that. This is one of the reasons, in my personal opinion, you can't have an honest conversation with 99% of the people that walk the face of the earth. Because we could be speaking in generalities, and the people will say, but what about me? I don't do that. But we're not talking about you. We're talking about in general. And hit dog hollers. Obviously, you're doing something wrong, or else you wouldn't even be worried about this. But look, this dude R. Kelly does not represent most black men. This dude R. Kelly doesn't represent most black men. He represents a very small percentage of black men in America today. And then we always talk about sexual assault. Again, if we want to talk about sexual assault, What about the World Health Organization? They sent people to the Congo because it was a SARS or some kind of outbreak. I can't think of the name of the illness. Oh, Ebola. It was an Ebola outbreak. And you send people down there to allegedly help in the Congo. And then, as of now, 83 people have been found that have been known as been labeled as suspects for sexual assault. So I'm down here dealing with a damn flesh-eating disease. And people from the world, y'all supposed to be the helpers. We coming through, we're helping, we're good, tried and true. And then 83 of y'all take advantage of these women down there. Why ain't that on TV? See, we talk about one dude assaulting 30 people at the most, or whatever the case with this clown. You know, because I've never listened to the dude's music. I'm not going to lie to you. I never listened to it, man. And I know people going to be like, hey, man, you're a lie. You listen. I've never listened to it. Never. I've never heard, if it wasn't on the radio in somebody's car, I ain't hear his music. It wasn't my get down then, it wasn't my get down now, and I'm not going to continue to throw more dirt on him, but put it like this. I heard about what y'all hearing about in the early 90s when he was with the public announcement. So I was like, as a matter of fact, I hate to throw dirt on the man's name because he already in the world of trouble, but I can remember when his very first hit was the popping thing. And I was like, man, what's with this song? Why they playing it all the time? And the homie was like, hey, man, he's from Chicago. And, you know, he's messing with those girls in high school. And that's exactly what that's exactly how I was introduced to this dude. So I don't care. You know, it's not my getting down, you know, point blank and period. And I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to be bothered with none of that nonsense. I'm not even going to acknowledge the foolishness. You see what I'm saying? Because you got people in here, you know, got people out here that will focus on this nonsense day in, day out, month in, month out, because they have nothing else to do. They have nothing else to do. So I'm not going to continue to kick dirt on the man, but look, I'm not the dude to be played with or trifled with, and I'm not going to sit around and let you be somebody who making an ass out of somebody else. And that's just the way it goes. Point blank, period, end of the sentence. That is. So we going to move forward, and I'm going to block this jackass in my chat room who thinks he's funny. Because he has nothing else to do, and he should have died when he's a baby. Period. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about a couple other things like police reform, right? We are in a off year in regards to elections. And when I talk about these things, people always get frowned up. Oh, well, you don't really want to talk about politics. You really don't want to move and shake the way we're moving and shaking and things of that nature. And we do. We do, because for whatever reason, people who work every day only talk about politics on even number years. And we need to get away from that kind of behavior. This is something that our ancestors, people in the civil rights movement, people from the 70s, people from the 80s, and going backward, they engaged 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Period. They did this. They lived this. They ate it, because guess what? The reason I can sit on air today is because of people like the people from the movement. I ain't going to single out anybody, because it really doesn't make a difference if you single out anybody. But we have to start incorporating an actual plan. See, we need, I and you and everybody around you who's affected by this, we need to create a plan as of today. And what we've seen is people like Tim Scott. We've seen people like Joe Biden tell bold-faced lies. They tell bold-faced lies, and nobody holds their feet. Well, we got to be able to hold the politicians' feet to the fire. That's the new thing. That's the new line. That's the company line for working class people and people who are disenfranchised. Hold their feet to the fire. But what are we holding their feet to the fire for? They make us a lot of promises. We need to never hear another one of their promises. We need to go to the rallies. We need to go to the town halls. We need to go wherever these politicians are with a list of demands. For example, police reform. Police reform. You got people, let's just go to the state of New York, right? You got people who are on Rikers Island, which is basically, in essence, the county jail. They're there far too long in violation of their civil rights. In violation of the Constitution, they have not had a speedy trial. They're living in feces. They're piled up on each other like in a slave ship. See, this is the part of criminal reform, criminal justice reform, nobody really talks about. You got guards that scatter the prisoners, prisoners attacking the guards. You got this is a totally chaotic situation. There's a documentary out there about a young man who was wrongfully charged, and he ended up killing himself after being on Rikers Island. I'm quite sure that's there at the county jail here in Chicago, Cook County Jail here in Chicago, on 26th California. There's people in there far too long. But see, these are the things you got brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends in a place, packed into a place, whereas in this division, it's a dude who murdered, stabbed, killed, raped, and then this dude hit for traffic tickets at one point. How are you having those groups together? This is what we're talking about. You got people like Tim Scott, a brother, I use that term loosely, a brother who stands up. He tells such a bold-faced, damned lie that the Fraternal Order of Police union, two of the most powerful unions in America, say, you didn't say that to us. Stop lying to these people. Tim Scott was talking about defunding the police to the people, and he telling them how he gonna give them more money, and they snitched on him. Now, you know, if you've ever listened to any of my shows, you know I'm not a fan of the brothers in blue. You know, that blue wall, the people who walk around with guns with disco lights on top of their cars. I'm not a big fan of those people. But hey, I've got to shake their hand at this point. I'm forced to shake their hand at this point, because if you coming out calling these dudes, you calling out the senators who are about to give you money, and you're calling them lies and saying that's what, you know, you're disturbing the ability for us to inculcate ourselves with the communities and ingratiate ourselves with the communities, then bam, that's what you need to do. Those are the things that need to happen. But forget the union chiefs, forget the politicians. This is something we need to do. We need to put ourselves in a situation to whereas, remember, Joe Biden, one of his talking points was qualified immunity. Now, qualified immunity has passed through the House of Representatives on several occasions. Joe Biden is not putting no pressure on them. You know why? Because we're not using that 5 calls app that I told y'all about. We're not using that. We're not using the 5 calls app. What we're doing is complaining to each other, because I keep telling y'all, when you call your state representative, your U.S. Senate representative, somebody from your senator's office, state rep's office, the U.S. rep's office, the governor's office, the mayor's office, those calls are documented regularly. And if you look, just imagine, I don't know how many people in the chat room right now, I don't know how many people watch right now because I'm too busy to pay attention, but just imagine if everybody, let's say 50 people, if 50 people got 5 people each, if 50 people got 5 people each to make a call to your senator, your state representative, your U.S. congressman, just imagine if you got 50 people, just 5 people, 50. Just 50 people deified as 250 people. Call about the exact same thing. People start paying attention. See, we as a community, as a working class community, we need to put ourselves in situations to whereas we're going to be heard and we're marching in the same step. People like celebrities like Charlemagne the God, you know, we're not a monolith. But you know what? Nobody is. Your family is in a monolith. Hell, some of my cousins like the White Sox, some of my cousins like the Cubs. Everybody in my family, big-time Bear fans. I'm a small-time Bear fan. I'm a Raider fan. I'm a big-time Raider fan. So there's no monolith. But you know what? What you can be a monolith on is the destruction of these racist ways, like felonies. Why is it that if you go to jail for a felony, that felony follows you for the rest of your life? Why is it that if I was dumb enough to sell dope when I was 18, that penalty follows me for the rest of my life? Why isn't there some type of escalator? So, okay, when I'm 28, this thing is gone from my record because I've been, I got out 4 years later. Now I'm 22, and then I did 6 years without committing any crime. So unless I commit another crime, that felony goes away. These are things that we need to get together on. Qualified immunity. We need to be lockstep on qualified immunity because everybody I know either knows somebody or has experienced police brutality. And we all saw George Floyd die. The whole world saw George Floyd die. So, and in most cases, the cops wouldn't have been prosecuted. Let's get together on a group of issues so we can move forward and take care of people. So we can move forward. So as a community, we can get things done. Because see, the thing is, sitting back, waiting on people to do things for us, how well has that worked so far? It hasn't. It hasn't. Now, what I'm going to do is give you a piece of history, and we're going to pick up right where I left off at in about maybe 6 to 8 minutes. Enjoy this. It's educational. It's powerful. I need you to know about what we're talking about. This HRap beat is built for this network. I'll be right back.
Seldom do we ever associate martial arts with the African continent, as it's largely associated with Asia. However, most people around the world have their own form of it. Self-defense is a human tradition. For our community, martial arts was largely made popular during the blaxploitation films of the 70s. Black heroes performing martial art techniques became such an inspiration for the diaspora. Ironically, while we were busy emulating the great Asian traditions, we forgot to look back at our own continent. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you'd like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. This video was commissioned by a patron who wanted to discuss martial arts on the continent of Africa. First, let's define martial arts. Traditionally, martial arts has been defined by a system created for self-defense, whether it be for an individual, a group, or a nation. Now, most people don't consider entertaining or competitive art forms of self-defense as a martial art, but it can still be included, and I'll be including one in this video today. But most of these martial art forms mentioned today will be along the lines of individual and military self-defense. Our first martial art is perhaps one of the oldest forms of self-defense in human history, and that's wrestling. Africans have been wrestling since ancient times. We know this because they kept records of it on wall reliefs in Egypt. Wrestling from an African perspective was the sport of kings, if you will, meaning that Nile Valley rulers took the time to observe it. These wrestling contests were apparently done in their honor, and also a tool to symbolize the strength of the nation. The first record of wrestling in Africa dates all the way back to 2300 BC. This is very old, as many places around the world didn't even have a recognizable civilization. The so-called Nubian wrestlers seem to have been popular as they appear frequently on wall reliefs. Some scholars suggest that wrestling along the Nile helped to prepare men for battle mentally and physically, and so it may have been seen as a national duty to invest in the tradition. Oftentimes we see gourds dangling from wrestlers, which is supposed to indicate the loser according to some scholars, because once a wrestler is taken to the ground, the gourd breaks. Interestingly enough, this can still be observed among Sudanese wrestlers today. It's also interesting that according to oral tradition, the origin of wrestling amongst the Nuba people came from a desire to imitate certain animals and insects which were abundant in the hill country. The Nuba people observed how some monkeys and insects wrestled each other, especially how the monkeys played with each other by attempting to overthrow the other. The Nuba were fascinated by the techniques the monkeys used. As an example, apparently the monkeys would rub their hands on the ground, collecting dirt, which ultimately helped their grip. This oral tradition seems to be very similar to other martial art traditions in Asia, as some of their forms mimicked animals. Our next form is Zulu stick fighting, which is more of a martial art that is used for the military. Shaka Zulu apparently used this long tradition of stick fighting in the region as training for warfare, and as a way for his men to earn themselves positions in his military. The techniques and maneuvers used in Zulu stick fighting are similar to those incorporated in Zulu warfare, with the biggest difference simply being the weapons used. Today, stick fighting provides an opportunity for men in southern Africa to build confidence, improve their skills, and earn respect in their communities. One of the things I find fascinating about Zulu stick fighting is that it's not taught via a formal training program or process. It's supposed to be learned via assimilation, observation, and experimentation. Individuals are to create their own way by observing effective techniques and modifying to suit their physical needs or talents. In this way, the enemy cannot simply learn the format of a particular group. Each member he faces will bring something slightly different to the table. In other words, stick fighting is supposed to evolve and not be barred down by traditional concepts or ideas. This is very similar to Bruce Lee's concept of Jeet Kune Do. It's incredible that the Zulu incorporated something similar centuries before. Our next martial art is called Ngolo, which comes from the modern-day region of southern Angola. Ngolo is one of the most unique martial arts in human history. Its descendant, capoeira, has even been featured in movies and video games. Unlike the origins of various martial arts throughout the planet, one scholar suggests that Ngolo did not originate from animal observation, but local African cosmology. The origin of Ngolo, according to this scholar, is believed to have been a sacred pastime handed down from the ancestors. It was only later that the Ngolo took on a self-defense aspect in which it may have imitated the finesse and power of the zebra. The zebra had an ability to evade and deliver powerful kick attacks. In general, the martial art aspect of Ngolo, with its characteristic inverted kicks, can be understood as a stylistic manipulation of ancestral power. The ancestral plane, or world, was inverted. One then emerged into the world of spiritual power, where the ancestors walked inverted with their feet up and hands down. This quote exemplifies the spiritual aspect of Ngolo, accessing the spiritual realm through inverted techniques, such as the powerful Ngolo or capoeira kicks. The circle spaces used in Ngolo are in association with local Kalunga cosmology. Ngolo shined in helping fighters evade and dodge while also assisting in attacking in a seamless flow of energy with very little pauses. This is one of the reasons why enslaved Africans in Brazil who came from Angola were able to hide this martial art as a form of dance. And finally, as an honorable mention, we have the African martial art of Dambe. Now, many people wouldn't necessarily call this a martial art in the purest sense, but it's more of a combat sport used for entertainment purposes, originating amongst the Hausa people. The Dambe fighter's dominant hand is wrapped and is used primarily for striking. The other hand is usually used for holding, blocking, or guiding. One interesting note about the history of Dambe comes from Edward Poe, the pioneering researcher in the area of Nigerian martial arts. Here's what he has to say. One should also note that the single bound fist and salute in Dambe bears a remarkable resemblance to pictures of Egyptian boxers drawn on the walls of the tombs of the ancient pharaohs. Unfortunately, however, reliable information on the origins of Dambe hasn't really survived, but Edwards' observation is nonetheless fascinating. For the most part, modern Dambe has been credited to Hausa butchers with an intent to teach military skills to beginners. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.
Good evening again. It's your man HRap. Built for this network, coming at you live and direct as I always do. This is the End of the Bench podcast, and I hope you enjoyed that video. The reason I do those things is because we need to understand who we are and where we come from. We need to understand what's inside of us. We need to understand what we're capable of. If you notice, the thing that stood out to me the most about that one video is not the martial arts that came from the continent. The thing that stood out the most for me is this. It's the fact that the one form of martial art was so earthbound, it was so spiritual that people who created it used the cosmos to inculcate their movement. This lets you know that spirituality and what we would deem religion plays a gigantic role in everything that we do. And if you are able to do the research and look into these things and understand that, hey, the things that I'm doing are bigger than what I'm being displayed and bigger than what is being shown to me at that point, and in that instance, you'll realize what's inside of you is nothing but greatness. Look, we don't have to beat down anybody to say how great we are. Now, all you have to do, if you think I'm being discriminating or what have you, all you have to do is introduce your people to how great they were, and then we'll all be great at the same time. If you feel some kind of way, then it sucks to be you. I'm not going to explain it, but I want my people to realize that you are not a descendant of a slave. You're a descendant of a person who was captured. You're not at a disadvantage with this melanin. You're not less than. You are equal to anyone that ever walked the face of the earth. What you have to do is do the research and realize and look at your family, do the research in your immediate family, your grandparents, your parents, your uncles, aunts, cousins, what have you, and realize what trends are in your bloodline. Then you do a bigger, broad sweeping discovery and find out why were we even targeted, because a lot of people didn't understand the fact that, hey, when you look like this, a lot of tribes were targeted on the continent. And why were they targeted? Because of their agricultural genius. See, you're not taught these things in school, and you need to learn them. I'm not even going to go into detail with that. Look into why certain tribes were targeted, and then look at when we got over here, and then the whole enslavement period ended. What was the effect on a lot of people from outside of our community in regards to agriculture? See, these things are held from you because if you know these things, they call it a green thumb. Like, I just have an innate ability to grow things. No, if you are a black person in the United States of America, if you're from African descent, which is a 99.9% chance that you are one way or another, you probably come from a tribe that were agriculturally genius. And that's why you were captured and bought here. This was not just random. Oh, get them over there. No, you had sisters. If you watch the show on Mondays on BS Street Network, Forecast, we covered this thing called How in the Hog. When you hear How in the Hog, you thinking it's a fool, it's going to be about pork and all that right there. No, it wasn't. It was showing you that how, in some instances, black women put rice in their hair. And they were bought over here and they were sent to South Carolina, and that's what South Carolina is one of the biggest rice producers on earth. And you see how the things that were part of us, they were not on us, they were in us, and we shared them. If you've listened to my show before, you know that my grandmother, my mother's mother, Dolores Pollard, was a seamstress. She was a tailor. She used to create clothes for me, my brother, me, my sisters, my uncles, my aunts, and her sisters and brothers as well. Now my daughter is a seamstress. She's into fashion now. She's into high fashion now. She didn't just pick that up because, oh, she watched so many fashion shows and then I just wanted to do it. It was in her. I'm going to need you guys to do the same thing, and that's why I show those historic videos, whether it be violence enacted against us or something as glorious as the creation of martial arts on the continent. Because when you see those things and you look at somebody like Muhammad Ali, you look at somebody like Floyd Mayweather Jr., you look at somebody like Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, and on, they didn't just become boxers. They were probably part of the people. They were brought over here as part of some of those tribes that created some of those martial arts, self-defense, and they, like he said, you one of those arts was not used as a rigid form of everybody do it like this. You watch and then you change it into whatever you wanted to do. Pernell Whitaker, he did that. Muhammad Ali, he did that. Floyd Mayweather, he did that. Sugar Ray Leonard, he did that. Sugar Ray Robinson, he did that. Jack Johnson, he did that. Okay, I see the way you're doing it, but I'm going to add my flair to it. These are the things that you need to be keenly aware of so you can stop assuming that people just, hey man, it's just natural. There is no natural gifts. This comes from your ancestors, and this is why it's a part of your life. Now, with that being said, back to what we talk about in regards to police reform and governmental power. What we have to do is get involved, and we cannot get involved sometimes. We must stay involved. If you want your community, if you want some of the violence to dissipate in your community, we got to get involved. If you want you want those schools to improve in your community, we have to get involved. If you want after school programs in your community, we have to get involved. And the only time we can rest is when they close that box. That's the only time we can rest. We don't have the ability to rest. Tell you what, we can rest when your grandkids get involved. You hear me? When your grandkids get involved, then we can rest. When we should be resting now, but between the ages of 14 and 40, we can't rest anymore, because those ages, 14 to 40, because why did I start at 14? Because at 14 we need to be educating our young people. You need to be a lawyer, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a school teacher, you need to be a historian, you need to be whatever. We need to be lining our kids up. So, and then you need to be involved civically, civic engagement. This is where you're going to be a politician. We're going to put you in play, and you're going to go fight for these things. We're going to make sure. And then and only then, literally, if we had done this, in my personal opinion, the day that April 4th, 1968, if we'd have took on that mantra right then and there, guess what? People like my age, 51, we could rest then. But we didn't. Therefore, we must pick up the reins and guide our young people right into these situations, because it is not good enough to say it ain't going to change. Because if it ain't going to change, then okay, lay down and then stop complaining. If it ain't going to change, no need for you to complain. Then there's no need to vote for anybody. There's no need to do anything. But you vote, you complain, you participate, you have these conversations. These conversations are circular conversations that go nowhere, and it's time for us to stop having those conversations and engage in that fashion. We have to. If you get up and go to work every day, which most of the people who listen to my program, that's what you do. You get up and go to work every day. If you're doing that, we need to be talking about police reform, because the police were at the end of the day, look, we need to have a tearing down of the police and rebuilding, because they didn't have a slavery reform. The police was any white man with a gun who saw black people congregate, and he had to bust that up, because there was going to be no unionizing of black people. Patty rollers weren't having it, and that's where it comes from. So we need to do away with that and then rebuild a new system. Because you can't reform cancer. You can't reform diabetes. You can't reform a cold or the flu. You got to eradicate it from your body, and then you move forward. We can't do that. That's not the way it works. You create a whole other system and rebuild it from there. Qualified immunity is another thing. We got to get rid of qualified immunity, because why are you qualified to do whatever you want to do and the rest of us can't? Period. We need to get rid of that. We need to recreate the prison system, because the prison system was created in Europe and then over here, recreated over here, because there's no, y'all heard me say it before, there's no word for prison on the continent. So we need, if it's about crime and punishment, say it's about crime and punishment. It's about crime and rehabilitation, like in Europe and Germany and places like that, when they rehabilitate the people who chose nefarious paths, then that's what we need to do. And I think it's Germany. When you commit a crime and you get out of jail, you automatically get an apartment and you get a pamphlet so you can be trained to do something productive in the world. And when you're trained to do something productive in the world, you go out with a skill and you hit the world, and then you hit the world rolling, and next thing you know, you're a successful human being and you feel value in yourself. And then when you feel value in yourself, you spread value to your community. When you spread value to your community, the people, the young people, the old people, the middle-aged people, they all, it's an enhancement. It shouldn't be a damn near a death sentence. You shouldn't be addressed as a 4-time felon or 3-time felon, because you should have been given basically counseling and then training and then reintroduction into society. That's what you should have had. But we're not doing that here in America, because to my next point, we are a capitalist society. And when you are participating in a capitalist society, this is what I want you to realize. You're buying into greed. I'm going to say that again, because people think capitalism is cool. He who dies with the most toys wins. Allow me to backtrack before I get into that. And one thing else about these bills and getting involved politically, maybe we need to rename some of these bills. We got the George Floyd Act. We got the John Lewis Anti-Lynching Act. We got the George Floyd Anti-Policing Act. Maybe we need to remove the names of these black men from these bills. Because, see, everybody looked at the George Floyd thing, they was down and all blah, 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 blah. No. Because when you see John Lewis, a brother who stood up and called the good trouble he used to get into, that triggers people. You see George Floyd, we ain't doing nothing to help those people. But when you just say, it's this and it's that, maybe those bills will creep through. Just a suggestion. But capitalism, what we need to do is realize that capitalism is not our friend. Capitalism isn't a friend of any poor person. And, I'm a capitalist, I'm going to take advantage of this. Guess what? Capitalism is the reason your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents were captured and brought over here. Because people capitalized on what they had and took advantage of it. The bully is a capitalist. The schoolyard bully is the capitalist. I'm going to get, he going around taking everybody $1. Give me your $1. Give me your $1. Give me your $1. And then 1 or 2 people say, I'm going to give him $3, so he ain't going to mess with me. But he going to come to you the next day and say, I need 5. And that's what capitalism does. Capitalism is why things are in the situation it is now. We must stop buying into these bromites and these phrases and all this nonsense that people buy into in regards to capitalism and a way of living and things of that nature, because that's not our nature. It's really not. It's not the nature of a human being to take everything around him. It's your nature to share and help. I get frustrated with it sometimes, like, oh, why am I helping? But because it's in my nature. It's who I am. It's who I was designed to be. It's frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is. But capitalism is not your friend. And anybody from our community or anybody at working class that says they're capitalist, that's because you want to be the bully. Scientific socialism is the way to go. If you get a chance, look up my great ancestor, our great ancestor, Kwame Ture. You might find him under Stokely Carmichael, but scientific socialism is the way to go. Helping when you can. Making everybody and everything have the ability to be as successful as humanly possible. That's the way to go. Because capitalism isn't the way. Because we're living in a capitalistic society, and seeing how it's going to be extremely hard to get people out of that. Just like I had to rethink the way I was talking about voting, I'm rethinking the way I'm talking about capitalism. Simultaneously, right? When you talk about capitalism, at this point, we're the horse. Capitalism is the jockey getting all the credit for what the horse did. All he did was go for a ride. He went for a hell of a ride. Oh, well, he the greatest jockey in the world. Coaching. I told y'all what to do, and y'all went out and did it. But we don't need you. We don't need you. We don't need you to do that. We do not need you to do that. Period. Point blank, end the story. We don't need you to do that. Now, what we're going to do is stop being the horse in capitalism. We're going to stop being the payee, the payer. We're going to be the payee. See, capitalism has people. I got a home girl. I don't want to own no property. I just pay rent. And then guess what? $800-900 times 12. That's what I want y'all to do. Let's just go 900. Be on the cheap side. Let's be on the cheap side. 900 times 12. $108,000 a year. You lived there 15 years. You just made that dude $1.5 million with one apartment. You're the horse. You are the horse. You want to continue to be the horse? You can look at the bank that way too, but at the end of the bank thing, you own something. You own something. You own that building. And guess what? It might not take you 30 years to pay off a house note. It may not take you 30 years to pay off a house note. 30 years to get them the max amount of money. It's called futures on the stock market. When you hear people talk about futures, what they do is you go to Chase or you go to One United Bank. One United Bank is going on the 30-year mortgage. They projected to make $300,000 on a $100,000 house. That's just the way it works. What they'll do is say, HRap got a 900 credit score, 800 credit score. He got perfect credit. He ain't gonna do this. He ain't gonna default on this loan. I sell y'all this for $200,000 today for the future payout of $300,000 when that loan matures. That's if you pay it over a 30-year period. The horse, you've made the bank goo gobs of money. Now what you can do is go to one of these dilapidated communities with a lot of dilapidated homes and go get loans and refinance those homes. And now you got bought a house for $5,000 and you're gonna put $50,000 in it. Now you got a $55,000 loan on your back, and the house is totally rehabbed. And guess what? $55,000 in the general situation can be paid off in 5 years. How is it that it takes you 30 years to pay off a $100,000 house, but it takes you 5 years to pay off a $50,000 car? You must stop being the horse. The horse gets no credit. The jockey gets money. He gets fame. He gets recognition. He gets women or men or whatever the case may be. And the horse did all the work. Stop going to the stores every time it's an iPhone 12 out. Hell, my iPhone 10 is still working. It ain't slowing down or nothing. I know at some point it's gonna age out, and maybe that's when I go get another phone. Or if I crack it or break it, then I go get another phone. Why must we have 50 pairs of sneakers? Too many pairs of sneakers, and it's cool. But we've made the dude who owned Nike, Phil Knight, we've made him billions of dollars. We made Michael Jordan billions of dollars. They ain't coming to the hood and doing nothing for you. You're the horse. Stop being the horse. Start being the jockey, people. Stop being the horse. Start being the jockey. Because the horse gets no pub. The horse gets nothing. And that's what we've been getting. This is an entire movement that we have to set in place. We can't just sit around and hope and pray and see one of these days it's going to and da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. We're not going to be able to do that. And another way we're the horse, social media. Clubhouse, we made them billionaires. And that's the hottest thing in the world. You got to be invited in. It's exclusive. You can say what you want and you can speak da-da-da-da-da. Me personally, I think Clubhouse is an extension of Instagram. I told my son 10 years ago when Instagram first started popping, or 8 years ago, however many years ago when it first started popping, I was like, I don't like this Instagram thing because it's all pictures and it doesn't allow you to exercise your reading skills. You're not reading while you're on Instagram. You're just looking at pictures. Clubhouse is taking it to the next level. You're not reading or seeing pictures, just listening. You're being programmed. You're being told what to think and or do. That's what Clubhouse does, and that's what social media is doing to the diaspora by and large. We make these social media platforms exciting. We make them fun. We make them what they need to be. The whole world almost went crazy yesterday with no Facebook. I literally seen one of my homies put, I almost went crazy without Facebook. Obviously, that person was joking, but there's some people out there that really believe that. There's some people out there that really believe that. And there's a whistleblower out there from 60 Minutes saying that Facebook is purposely poisoning you because people love chaos and mayhem. What I'm going to do is ask our brother Junior Bridgman, who just bought Essence and Jet, to create a black version of Facebook that is tied into Jet and Ebony. And we can go on there and get black news. You can have black enterprise be plugging stuff in, and then you can be plugging stuff in from Jet and Ebony, much like the Huffington Post does. HuffPost, Ariana something, I don't know. She created the Huffington Post. We can do the same thing with Ebony and Jet. I grew up in an era where you couldn't walk into a black household and you wouldn't see Ebony and Jet. What we can do is reestablish that and start supporting the re-emergence of Essence, the re-emergence of Jet, the re-emergence of what was at that point Johnson Publishing. We can do that. And if he created something like that for us to go to, and then because Facebook, the lady on 60 Minutes Sunday said Facebook is only pushing out chaos because they know people click on chaos. How about if Ebony and Jet created a social media platform that rivaled Facebook, and it was kind of targeted at us, and instead of chaos and mayhem, it created the excellent teachers, the young men and women who had nefarious past that turned their lives around, and things of that nature. Would you be interested in that? Would you engage, or would you stay over here at Facebook and look at the fights and the chaos and the mayhem? You can put up the same funny jokes, you can put up the same funny memes, you can do all the same things, but you wouldn't do it, so the whole world would laugh at you. With that being said, man, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the End of the Bench podcast. I am HRap. If you are not busy this evening, I need you to go to BS3 on YouTube. BS3 Sports and Entertainment on YouTube. There's a wonderful podcast about to start in 11 minutes. It is called Queens 3 and King. It is my main man Doc and his beautiful sisters. It is engaging. It's fun. It's thought-provoking. I need you to do that. I need you, as you go through my timeline, you'll see Rated Kev. I need you to subscribe to my man Rated Kev on YouTube. Entertaining, fun, lighthearted, passionate. That's what Rated Kev is. My man the Finest Wine Cooking. He's not in now, but look up Finest Wine Cooking on YouTube. Subscribe to these. And most important, subscribe to your boy. Like button. I need everybody to hit it. Subscribe button. I need everybody to hit it. The share button. I need everybody to hit it. And tell a friend to tune in Tuesdays and Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then I need you to hit that alert button. It's a little bell. It'll say all. You want to go to all, and that's what you're going to do. Like, all, share. With that being said, as I salute everybody who gives me inspiration, like my main man Lamont King, he'll be on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on YouTube. Awesome show. The Ghetto Boys Podcast, Tariq Nasheed, Nori, Talib Kweli, Ray Grady, Zoe Williams, Corey Holcomb, Craig Smith, he's on as well. Craig's on right now. Al Sharpton, the Reverend Al Sharpton, the Queen of Hip Hop, Heather B. I don't care what you say. Nikki and all of them. No, stop it. Hip hop, not rap. It doesn't go that way. Clay Kane, one of the defenders of righteousness. Laurie Daniel Favor, Queen of Justice. The Walking Encyclopedia. Joe Madison, our elder. The most educated, informed man I've ever come across in my life. He goes by the name of Greg Carr. Baba Greg Carr, as I call him affectionately. And the Queen Mother. The lady who inspires a lot of people in the diaspora. The lady who works her behind off and does everything she can to make sure we're as good as possible. Salute to the Queen, Karen Hunter. With that being said, y'all know I salute to my main man, Reggie O'Shea. Rest in peace. And I use his ending to end my show by saying, dream those dreams and man up and woman up and live those dreams, because life without dreams flows in black and white. Life with dreams flows in Technicolor surround sound. This is your man, HRap. This is built for this network. I'm going to tell you, as I say every week, 2 fingers, 1 word. I'm out. Do something positive before something is done to you. 2, you got it. You get it. You're going to get it. Keep tuning in. I hope it's education. I hope it's informative. I hope it's inspiring. Yeah.
We are built for this network, for the strong, not the weak.